So it looks like everything we've been talking about, speculating, animating with AI may finally be happening for real and even as early as September next year. Looks like the Netflix adaptation of Warcraft is finally going to be coming. I know we've been talking about this for ages. You must have seen a new supposed leak of animated Warcraft popping up pretty much every few weeks these past few years, some forum posts, but we got about as official information as we can get. Not an official website, but we've learned that Netflix is working on a project for a popular Blizzard game that will be announced on the next year's BlizzCon. We've even gotten some insider information that Blizzard originally signed a deal with Netflix for 3 massive Blizzard projects back in 2020, but that ended up being a disaster for legal reasons. So what is everything we currently know and what will this series be like? Are we looking at an animated series or actual live action stuff? If you haven't seen it yet, I've been running a raid channel for quite a few months called Doran's Arena, and I'd really appreciate you guys checking it out. And also, if you haven't played the game yet, this is literally the best time to start, as they're giving everyone a free legendary champion where all you gotta do is log in by downloading the game with my link in the description or the QR code that you can see on the screen. So a super cool daily reward event is going on right now until the 5th of May, where you can get Ludex's outro by just logging in daily, and there is even a final reward, a relic that the community can vote on. Better yet, codes are going completely crazy right now, so all new players can only pick one of these. So Supreme 6 for Supreme Gallic, Monkey King for Sun Wukong, or Get Alice for Alice, but all players can also use the code GameLeap for additional stuff, and that is all on top of the stuff you will get when you download the game with my link in the description. Also, if you guys are in need of a clan, I'm currently running one, the Arena Syndicate, and we still got a few more spots left. So just click my link in the description or scan the QR code you can see on the screen, and you will get an awesome package worth $60. You will get Zargala as soon as you complete tutorial, you will get Ugo at level 15, and you can even use one of the codes that I previously mentioned, so for all new players, then another one on top of that called GameLeap, and all you gotta do is just log in for 25 days for yet another legendary. So check out my link in the description below and check out my second channel, Doran's Arena. So realistically, news like these have been coming out pretty much every few months now. If you guys have followed any sort of YouTube or news platform, it does seem like every 2 months there is a leak or some insider information project where WoW is either getting a live action or an animated series, but looks like this time it is happening for real. Now, it turns out those other times were not actually lies. There were some legit rumors and insider information. It turns out Blizzard has actually been trying to tackle this animated series in a big way for years, not just dip their toes in the water to test it out whether it could work, but we've actually learned that they had 3 total projects planned with Netflix originally, but that actually went sour. All of this brings us to today. Now, none of this is actually out of the blue. If you guys could be following the recent news from the past year or two, there was a ton of foreshadowing. First of all, Chris Metz's return told us we can expect a lot more coming to not just World of Warcraft, but Warcraft as a franchise. And then we got a lead Blizzard dev some year ago talking about how they're legit planning a new Warcraft movie if they can find the right studio to do it at the right time, and they want to kind of do it right this time again. Then a few months back, Blizzard has announced that BlizzCon is coming in September 2026, which obviously means they got big news planned, and based on the timeline, it seems very likely that The Last Titan, so the final installment of the World Soul Saga, could also be announced then as well. So the actual news, while it isn't exactly the official Blizzard post, it also isn't some forum leak. It's actually really as close to official as we can get right now, as it is from 2 weeks back. We're on a podcast for Xbox, and keep in mind, Blizzard is now part of Microsoft, so all of this is super related. A journalist discusses the success of the recent Minecraft movie, how while they can't say all the details right now and everything, he says that Netflix is currently working on a joint project with Blizzard to make an adaptation of a popular Blizzard game, and he won't say which game. However, it was said that the project will be revealed on BlizzCon 2026 in September next year, which explains why they decided to announce the BlizzCon so early, nearly 2 years before the actual event. You might remember that little trailer we had seen a few months back with the suspicious northern vibes to the entire Blizzard logo. Even more interestingly, just so you can see that this is legit, he talks about how this actually already happened back in 2020, but the entire project ended up failing, and now they're picking up the pieces. So apparently, originally 5 years ago, Blizzard started serious talks with Netflix where they had 3 actual large projects planned, with them very likely involving Overwatch, StarCraft, Diablo, and Warcraft potentially, but this ended up being a legal nightmare as apparently Netflix had poached an executive from Blizzard, so Blizzard ended in a lawsuit. This ended up nowhere. It was a complete dead end. This is actually kind of consistent with the disaster Blizzard was at this point in time, as they seem to have burned quite a lot of bridges at this point in time. I mean, this is also when WoW was completely turned off in China and a whole bunch of other controversies were going on at the same time. Big time. However, now it is a completely different climate, and it looks like they're legit picking everything back up, especially with the completely new management. So in the interview, they discussed the a bit unexpected mainstream success of Minecraft and Fallout turning into screen projects, and how Blizzard is realizing they want to be on this as well. Now, the only little news we know is that Netflix is working on a series based on a popular Blizzard game. Realistically, all Blizzard games are popular, and the most people are thinking this might be Overwatch due to the more mainstream popularity with the younger audience, and some people are saying Diablo and StarCraft, but honestly, World of Warcraft is still the main project Blizzard is working on. They even admitted this themselves, that it is the most successful project they're currently running, and let's be real, Warcraft is incredibly popular as well, super developed when it comes to the story. It might not be super appealing to a very young audience today, but it has a gigantic fan base nonetheless. Even the Warcraft movie that is generally considered a failure or just breaking even, actually did pretty well. I mean, a lot of people had seen it, but also keep in mind, 10 years ago was a completely different climate for video game screen adaptations and how successful they can actually be. Now, we can actually kind of combine this with a few other hints that had happened recently in the past year or two. With the Microsoft acquisition and the full return of Chris Metzen, it was obvious that World of Warcraft really is coming back big time. They obviously invested a ton of resources into this World Soul saga. They're very clearly hinted they got like the next 20 years planned for the series, so WoW is back again in the spotlight. Then, when Chris Metzen returned, he said that very exciting times are ahead for the entire franchise, not just World of Warcraft. This is probably related to Warcraft 3, but also almost certainly to this Netflix series. I mean, they have been dabbling with this animated movie thing, like screen adaptation, for 15 years really, and they almost fully committed 5 years ago to 3 large projects, so obviously this was in the talks even a few years back. Another thing that I've covered already is the promotional material that you might have seen was really a hint that they did for The War Within, which at the time I did say was an experiment. For quite a while, Blizzard has been doing this lore promo series before the expansion is released with a few animated shorts, but for the first time ever, they went with this really new art style for Illyria, the Illyria video, and I really think this was a quick test to see how it vibes with the audience, this specific art style that we had never seen before. Despite The War Within being a theme, they spent a lot of resources showing orcs versus humans part of Warcraft in the original game, and I would say it was a very successful test. I mean, check out the fact that the Threads of Destiny, the Nerubian cinematic, didn't even break 1 million views, but the Illyria Light and Shadow got nearly 8 million views, being incredibly popular and very successful with the audience. As I said, this animated series with Netflix has really been in the background for a while. They probably had a rough idea what they wanted to do, so they figured out to test a few different things, few different art styles, and to see how the audience responds. If it really was a test for the animated series, then a similar animated style just like the Illyria video could actually be coming, but the real question is, what could the adaptation actually be about, as keep in mind, Warcraft universe is incredibly gigantic. Now, despite the fact that it is Netflix, so honestly I wouldn't be surprised if they just adapted the Dragonflight storyline as like the pinnacle of Warcraft. Realistically, the older parts, the foundation of World of Warcraft would really work best. Probably not orcs versus humans, as they tried to do that with the Warcraft movie. It didn't really work that well, but starting somewhere with the second war would actually be a good idea. Think of it something like the attack on Quel'Thalas, the Human Kingdoms, orcs already being established, trolls, and ultimately the orcs being sent into determinant camps and then troll freeing them. All of this pre-Third War could actually turn out to be an excellent adaptation that a lot of mainstream audience, possibly not familiar with World of Warcraft, could totally vibe with. However, the Third War is also very likely candidate with the entire Scourge, art and storyline, the fallen Human Kingdom, the Prince, the King, the orcs finding their place in the world, the establishment of the Horde on Kalimdor, the invasion of the Burning Legion. All of this could fit perfectly as well. Further than this, I really don't think they would do World of Warcraft stuff like Cataclysm Anthem or Legion just yet. Honestly, seeing that they never really did something like this other than the Warcraft movie, I think the second war is the perfect place to start. It is relatable enough for the audience not familiar with the game, but it also gives them a lot of room to continue on the series if it actually becomes popular, because they got like 10 possible sequels to go from. The only part to think about is whether this would be an actual movie type series or an animated or CGI series, and personally I think it is very likely going to be animated at this moment, as the Warcraft movie was insanely expensive at the time, and I'm not sure if they're willing to take such a gigantic risk once again. And let's be real, a lot of the WoW lore is really hard to put into live action without looking very tacky and like a generic fantasy film, so something is definitely coming. I mean, World of Warcraft hasn't been 100% confirmed, a Blizzard project has been confirmed, but we know that objectively WoW is the most likely candidate, the most popular series that Blizzard is currently running. I'm guessing we are going to get hints every now and then what could be going on and what this series could be like, but we are going to get a big announcement next year in September, very likely together with The Last Titan. I don't necessarily think that the series will be related to the World Soul Saga, as I think the main goal of it would be to just get people interested in Warcraft in general so that they could get funneled into the World Soul Saga itself. But it does appear that exciting times are ahead. Thanks for watching. Check out whether the Dark Heart is really a different version of the Heart of Azeroth by clicking on the screen, and subscribe to my raid channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!